seeing that the National Youth League convener is engaging the delegates there. Moloko Moloto is covering that story for us and will give us questions, but let's take you there live just to see what's happening.
Well, good afternoon, Rofiwa. Indeed, thank you so much. We are live from the Congress, the elective Congress of the ANC Youth League here at the Nasrec. And of course, it's delayed. It should have actually started yesterday. It was just blocked by some delays when it comes to registrations, because remember, that is a very important part of any conference, because should there be an argument over the legitimacy of the delegates who would be in this conference, it can always, even at times, collapse the Congress. But let's speak to the leaders of the ANC Youth League who are organizing and running this particular conference. I'm joined now by Fasia Hassan, who is the deputy convener of the national task team of the ANC Youth League. Thank you so much for your time. Maybe before we can even get into the other issues, what's going to happen now, since we have seen the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, open in this conference? Does it mean that the election of the new leaders will get underway with immediate effect from here?
So we've just broken for lunch. The next big thing we have to do is adopt credentials, which is very similar to what you were talking about, the registration. That really does determine who's from which province, how many voting delegates. You know, it really does come down to the arithmetic. But once that's done, already the train is starting to move. So we'll move quite quickly. The electoral agency will then take over, and then they'll call for nominations if there are any on the office bearers, and then we'll move towards voting and ultimately towards additional members. But very importantly, it's not just about electing, it's also about policy. We'll be discussing those in either commissions or in plenary, the different policy positions of the Youth League.
Nomination from the branch level has already been done, and up to now, we know that there seems to be a slate that would be on the ballot box. Of course, my understanding is that there's going to be a nomination from the floor, and those who meet the threshold would possibly contest. But as we speak now, there's only 5 people for the top 5 position. As the youth, are you happy with a situation where there seems to be an arrangement of leadership, particularly at the top echelons?
One thing you must know is young people will be contested. I think this idea that it's going to be a walkover, we must defeat it immediately. I think we will see other nominations. You need 25% of the voting delegates inside to get onto the ballot. That doesn't mean you get in, it means you get on to fight for that position. So I think you're going to see a lot more names coming through, and for me that's not a bad thing. So many people think that contestation or democracy, I mean, it's perfect. It's exactly what we want. We want young people to finally, after 8 to 10 years, actually choose and elect the leadership that we want. So I think it's a good thing, and I think we will see more names.
The ANC Youth League has, for a long time, has always been contested by, interestingly, the leaders of the ANC itself, and this was just confirmed by Fikile Mbalula as he was addressing the members of the media now, saying that there are members of the Youth League who connived with leaders of the ANC who delayed this particular conference in the years that have gone past. How are you going to make sure that you are not seen after the election to be a leadership that has been elected to serve the interests of those in the ANC?
That's fundamental, actually. One of the big things that this conference is about is actually regaining and fighting for our autonomy as youth leaders. Up to now, and myself included, we're appointed, we're task teams. We were handpicked by the leadership to take us to conference. That does not mean that we are the true representation of what young people want. But the moment you start having free and fair elections, like in this national conference, you're going to see different outcomes, and you're going to see, I would think, a lot more of a testy situation or a relationship between the Youth League and the ANC, because in many ways we have to be the ones who lift up that mirror. And I think South African society may not be ready for the kind of vibrant Youth League that we need to have, because you're going to see a lot more in the political terrain. So that's something to expect. But also we must be very clear. As young people, we must reject the notion that we're going to be fodder or pocket knives of the eldership. One of the reasons why we're in the crisis that we are in, and I don't mean this only in the ANC, I mean this as young people in the country, is because we've allowed ourselves to be used, or because we haven't fought for our decision-making to be there. And that was also a big theme of the political report that we presented today.
Yeah, let's talk about gender parity. I mean, we see this playing itself across the branches of the ANC, even in the Youth League. The leader, president, would be a man, and the chairperson would be a man. Deputy positions are always reserved for women. It appears to be the case even in those who are nominated in those top 5 positions.
It's a huge problem. For me as a young person, but also as a woman, we reject that notion completely. And a few things. The first is that we've created a political culture of women, like you said, more being deputies or treasurers. That's something we have to reject and we have to change in this Youth League. Prior to the reconfiguration of the NYTT, I was in this one as well. We had Nongeba as a convener, we had Joy as the coordinator, we had a woman convener, coordinator, organizer, spokesperson, fundraiser. I mean, it's not that there isn't capacity, it's that it's so easy to fall into these factional traps, and we need to reject that and fight for ourselves as women to take those spaces.
Women must fight for this, but of course, ultimately, women who also form part of the delegates oftentimes are the ones who are voting for these men to dominate these critical positions. Rofio, of course, we're going to be here for the rest of the night until they wrap up with their business as young people of the ANC.